It was the sunflowers that first caught Jack's eye. Hundreds of bright yellow faces turning to greet the morning sun in the vacant lot beside the old factory. And kneeling among them, her blonde hair glowing in the golden light, was the girl. Jack slowed his bicycle, transfixed. Every day for the past year on his morning commute, he had cycled past the derelict industrial building, barely glancing at the wild tangle of weeds and debris behind the rusted chain-link fence. But now, this secret garden had sprung up as if by magic overnight, and with it, her. She looked up then, meeting his gaze, a trowel in her dirt-covered hands, eyes as green as the sunflower leaves. A smile lit her face, radiant as the flowers surrounding her. Jack found himself smiling back. He raised a hand in greeting before he could stop himself, then felt foolish and pedaled quickly away. But the sunflowers stayed with him all day as he worked at the auto body shop, sanding down dents and dabbing putty over rust spots. Thoughts of the girl flitted through his mind like hummingbirds, there and gone. Who was she? Why was she planting a garden there of all places? Would she be there again tomorrow? She was, and the next day and the next, sometimes watering, sometimes pruning, once sitting cross-legged in the midst of the stalks, scribbling in a notebook. Jack began to slow down each morning, hoping to catch her eye, working up the nerve to say hello. But each time, shyness overcame him. What would he say? What could a gruff 35-year-old with grease perpetually etched into his knuckles have in common with a free-spirited flower child who could coax life from the barren soil? Until one morning, he found her kneeling over something in the dirt, her shoulders shaking. Letting his bike clatter to the pavement, Jack hurried over to the fence. "Miss, you okay?" She turned, tears streaking her freckled cheeks. In her cupped palms, a broken-necked sunflower blossom. "Rabbit attack," she said, her voice thick. "The jerks mowed down a whole row of them."
"I'm sorry."
Jack gazed at the fuzzy brown center, the ragged golden petals, and the tears glistening on her skin. His heart twisted in his chest. He hated seeing her cry. This girl who had brightened his mornings for weeks now. His sunflower girl. "Look, I could maybe rig something up to keep them out," he found himself saying. "Like a fence or some netting, if you want." Her eyes went wide. "Really? You'd do that?" Jack rubbed the back of his neck. "Sure, I'm pretty handy. Building stuff is kinda my thing." He glanced back at the flowers still standing tall and proud. "Seems a shame to let some dumb bunnies ruin all your hard work." She smiled then, and it was like the sun coming out. "I'm Emma, by the way." "Jack." He stuck his oil-stained hand through the chain link. She took it without hesitation, her grip strong and calloused from gardening. A tingle shot up his arm. And just like that, the sunflower girl had a name, and Jack had an excuse to see her again. He showed up after work with a roll of chicken wire and some steaks. Together, they encircled the garden, hammering and stretching and laughing when their hands touched. "So what's the story with the secret garden?" he asked as they surveyed their work, the sun sinking behind the factory in a blaze of orange. "This isn't exactly the obvious spot for horticulture." Emma tilted her head thoughtfully. "I just wanted to bring a little beauty to an ugly place, I guess. Put something good out into the world." Jack thought of rusty car parts and dented fenders, the smell of solvent and metal shavings. "I get that. The sunflowers were my grandfather's favorite," she continued softly. "He used to grow fields of them on his farm. I helped him harvest them every fall. He passed away last year." She blinked rapidly and turned away. "Hey!" Jack's hand twitched with the urge to touch her, offer comfort, but he shoved it in his pocket instead. I think he'd like knowing his sunflowers are still out there making people smile, making the world a bit brighter. "Like they make my world brighter," he wanted to add. "Like you do." Emma met his eyes, her green gaze clear and piercing. Seeing him, it felt like, really seeing him. "Thank you, Jack, for everything." After that, Jack found more and more excuses to stop by the garden. An old hose reel to set up a makeshift irrigation system, scrap wood and pallets to build raised beds, bringing Emma lemonade as she weeded in the sweltering late summer sun. Each time she greeted him with that brilliant smile, and they fell into easy conversation in a way Jack never had with anyone before. He learned that Emma was 28, a freelance graphic designer who shared an apartment downtown with her sister. That sunflowers were her favorite flower, but dahlias and zinnias were a close second. That her dream was to someday own a farm like her grandfather's and grow enough flowers to supply local shops and markets. In turn, Jack told her about teaching himself to fix car engines as a broke teenager, about his plans to someday open his own custom auto body shop, bringing old classics back to life, how he liked to bring home junkyard wrecks and turn them into works of art, putting something good out into the world, as Emma put it. "You get it," she said, squeezing his arm. Her touch burned like a brand. As summer faded into fall, the sunflowers grew heavy with seeds and began to droop. Yet Jack had never felt so light. He woke each day eager to get to work, then spend his evenings covered in dirt and pollen and the sound of Emma's laughter. This strange, flowering friendship they had grown between them had become the best part of his life, which was why it gutted him when Emma told him her news. A design agency in Seattle had offered her a job, full-time with benefits and opportunities to work on big projects. The kind of break she'd been hoping for. "That's great, Em." Jack forced a smile as they sat side by side in the garden, knees touching beneath the nodding sunflower heads. "I'm really happy for you." "Thanks." But she didn't sound happy. She sounded miserable. "It's just, I don't know if I'm ready to give up all this. My family, my friends." Her eyes met his. "You." Jack's heart kicked against his ribs. "Say something, idiot. Tell her how you feel. That you can't imagine your life without her in it anymore." But he couldn't do it. Couldn't be the one to hold her back from her dreams. Emma had become his sunflower girl in every sense, vivid and golden, always seeking the light. She deserved to spread her petals and grow, not stay potted in his small patch of earth. "You gotta go," he said hoarsely. "You gotta take your shot, Em. This garden, it'll still be here when you get back. And I will too. Will you wait for me?" Her green eyes pleaded. Always his blue ones vowed. The morning she left for Seattle, they met in the crisp dawn light to harvest the last of the sunflower seeds. They worked in silence, collecting the striped treasure into paper bags. When they finished, Emma turned to him, worrying her lower lip between her teeth. "Jack, She swallowed, blinked. Then she was in his arms, face pressed to his chest. He crushed her to him, inhaling her scent of soil and sunshine. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Then she was gone, leaving him clutching a handkerchief bundle of seeds and the ghost of her warmth against his skin. Fall turned to winter, the garden frosted over and dormant, a brittle sketch of its summer glory. Jack threw himself into his work, staying late at the shop, tinkering in his garage on weekends. But the motors and manifolds couldn't hold his interest like they used to. All he saw was the absence of her. Emma's texts and emails came less frequently as she got swept up in her new job and hectic big city life. Jack told himself it was good, that she was thriving, blooming where she was planted just like her sunflowers. But his thumbs hovered over the keys, itching to beg her to come back, to tell her he loved her, had always loved her, would give anything for a chance to prove it. But the words stayed locked behind his teeth. Roots ripped from the earth couldn't be replanted without withering. He learned that lesson as a child, when his mother tried to transplant his grandfather's prized rose bushes to their tiny apartment patio after the old man died. They were never the same, petals falling before they could fully open, leaves curling in on themselves, beauty fading before its time. He couldn't bear to see Emma shrivel under the weight of his need. The first green fingers of spring were just beginning to emerge from the cold ground when the postcard arrived. Van Gogh's sunflowers, the bright brushstrokes of yellow like a slash of longing in his gray, lifeless apartment. Jack flipped it over with trembling hands, barely registering the Seattle postmark. "Jack, I was wrong. It's not enough, the job, the city, any of it. Not without you. You're my sunflower, always guiding me to the light. That garden is where I left my heart. With you, if you're willing, plant the seeds. I'm coming home to see what grows." Love, your Emma. Jack closed his eyes, joy and relief coursing through him like sap rising with spring's thaw. She was coming back to him, his sunflower girl, and damned if he wouldn't spend the rest of his days making sure her roots never ripped from the soil again. That afternoon, he drove out to the old factory lot, now overgrown with dead vines and rotted stalks. The raised beds they had built together were still there, the chicken wire fencing like a lonely skeleton. It would take work, tilling the ground, unraveling the detritus winter always left in its wake. But he and Emma had brought forth life in this forgotten scrap of earth once before. They could do it again. He filled his lungs with the loamy scent of possibility. Then, with infinite care, Jack untied Emma's handkerchief bundle and began to tuck the sunflower seeds into the dark, waiting earth. One by one, each a silent promise. I'm here. I'm waiting. Come home to me. By summer, the garden was resplendent, a dazzling patchwork of gold, orange and red against the clear blue sky. Jack stepped back to survey his work, sweat cooling between his shoulder blades, just as a voice broke the buzzing quiet. I'm home. He turned, and there she was, a vision in a green sundress the same shade as her eyes. Emma, his sunflower girl. She ran to him, leaping over zinnias and cosmos to throw her arms around his neck. He caught her, pulled her close, still hardly daring to believe she was real, that she had chosen him, this life, this small scrap of earth filled with growing things. You planted my seeds, she said, laughing through tears. I had a pretty great teacher. He rested his forehead against hers. And a compelling reason. She kissed him then, a searing promise of a kiss, of roots replanted and making a home in each other. And as he lost himself in the sweet taste of her, in that tangle of pollen-dusted sunflowers straining toward the brilliant sky, Jack knew they would weather every season together, blooming and fading and rising again. A love as vivid and golden and enduring as the sunflowers. She pulled back to look at him, her green eyes shining with emotion. I missed you so much, Jack. I thought about you every day. About this. She gestured to the riotous blooms surrounding them, then placed a palm over his heart. And this. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He brushed a thumb over her freckled cheekbone, still marveling that he was allowed to touch her this way. I would have been on the first plane to Seattle. Emma bit her lip. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I was scared. Scared to admit how much I needed you. Scared that you might not feel the same way. Eminencia. He shook his head with a rueful chuckle. I've been crazy about you since the first day I saw you out here, covered in dirt with your nose in a sunflower. She laughed. Really? Really? Although to be honest, you had me at the chicken wire. He nuzzled her neck, breathing in her familiar scent of soil and sunshine and something uniquely Emma. I would have wrapped this whole city in the stuff if it meant spending more time with you. Who knew welded wire mesh was the way to a girl's heart? She teased. But her eyes were serious when she framed his face in her small, capable hands. I love you, Jack. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it, but I'm saying it now. His heart, so carefully tended all these long months, burst into glorious flower. I love you too, Emma, my sunflower girl. He captured her lips again, determined to pour every ounce of pent-up longing into the kiss. They swayed together in the buttery afternoon light, as a gentle breeze sent petals skittering around their ankles like confetti. After long, sweet moments, they broke apart, foreheads touching as they caught their breath. Jack laced his fingers through hers, marveling at how perfectly they fit together, calluses and all. So what happens now? He asked softly. I don't want to presume anything, but please tell me you're staying. Here, with me. I'm staying, Emma confirmed, squeezing his hands. The agency agreed to let me work remotely. I can design from anywhere. Her smile turned impish. And as it happens, I know a guy with a garage who might be able to set me up with an office. Jack whooped with joy, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. Emma shrieked with laughter, clinging to his shoulders. He set her gently back among the flowers, their faces inches apart. In that case, I have a proposal, he said. You can have my garage office for your design work, rent-free, and in exchange, he took a deep breath. Be my partner, not just in the garden, in everything. We can start that custom auto body shop I've been dreaming about. Restore old cars by day, grow flowers by night, build something beautiful together. What do you say, Em? Tears spilled down her cheeks, but her smile was incandescent. Oh, Jack, yes, of course it's yes. She punctuated her answer with a fierce kiss that left him lightheaded. This woman, his partner in all things, he couldn't wait to grow old with her, planting sunflowers and rebuilding engines, season after season, year after year. Come on, he said when they finally came up for air. He tugged her toward the battered garden shed tucked behind the factory wall, the one he'd fixed up with electricity and a work table to serve as their refuge on cold or rainy nights. I seem to remember you once mentioning that more could grow in a garden than just flowers. Emma giggled as he waggled his eyebrows. Why, Jack McIntyre, are you suggesting we christen our garden in a more carnal fashion? I believe I am. He caught her by her apron strings and pulled her flush against him. Unless you have any objections? Absolutely not. Lead the way. Much later, drowsy and sated on the tiny cot wedged beneath a shelf of flower pots, Emma drew idle patterns on Jack's sweat-sheened chest. Tell me the story again, she requested. About your grandfather's rose bushes. Jack smiled into her hair, his heart full to bursting. Well, the thing about rose bushes is they're tougher than they look. See, you can uproot them, move them all over the place, but with the right amount of love and care and patience, they'll take hold again. Bloom just as bright as they ever did. Like us, Emma murmured. Yeah. He dropped a kiss to her temple. Just like us. They drifted into contented silence. In the hazy golden hour, the sunflowers dipped and nodded in a subtle dance, as if joining in their quiet celebration. Jack imagined them whispering to each other, the same words echoing in his own heart. There is a love that grows, season after season, patiently tended and never uprooted, vivid and golden and enduring as the sunflowers. If you give it time, it will always lead you to the light.